In this video, I'll be diving into how Final Fantasy XI's UI helped elevate it to one of the greatest MMO experiences ever delivered. Let's kick that off right now. The return of classic WoW, and honestly my foray into other MMOs over the past 2 years, have impressed upon me the importance of a great UI. The interface is exactly what it sounds like. It's the player's first and greatest way to interact with and experience the game that they're playing. So it's obviously crucial that it delivers the most important aspects of the game easily to the player. For games like World of Warcraft, this most crucial element is information, and the developers left a huge door open for modders to enhance and enrich the UI as they saw fit, with add-ons providing, if desired, a frightening level of detail to what's currently happening to the player, the enemies the player is fighting, the party members around them. It is insane. Final Fantasy XI was, contrary to that, quite minimalistic, with macros only appearing on the screen temporarily, player health taking up a tiny spot in the periphery, and basically only current buffs and some server info remaining on the screen all the time. But before we get into why, let's quick do a run through of what the game does constantly show you, because honestly, it's not too much. Targets, whatever you're currently targeting, that will be displayed. Buffs, whatever buffs you have currently applied to your character, protect, shell, signet, the usual stuff, that's in the top of the screen. Player health in your MP pool, bottom right, it's always there. Very tiny. Chat will obviously pop up as chat or log stuff comes in. Not a big deal. Macros. When you hold down the button or click it if you're a toggle guy, macros will appear, but then they go away. Menus. Menus can be accessed, but they're not on the screen constantly. They're an in and out kind of thing. I don't know, everything about that just kind of reinforces the idea that the UI is something that the game wants to get out of your way. they're like, we're sorry that this UI is here. We'll get rid of it in a second. It's just there for a second. We'll get back to why they did this in a minute and how it affects the experience, but how is this even possible? I don't mean from like a developer standpoint of like how are you able to remove menus from the screen. Technically, it's super easy. In fact, it's probably harder to get the menus on the screen than it is to take them away. But when you compare it to other MMOs, they're constantly warning you about how much damage you're taking and when your ability timers have reset and when you're running out of bag space so you can optimally plan your visits to the nearest bank or safe or town or something. Now, part of this is just generally the Final Fantasy XI speed of play. Slow attack speeds, slow engage speeds, slow engage speeds. Now, part of it is the Final Fantasy XI speed of play, the slower attack round time, the long cooldown timers. Just give the player a lot of time to react to and prepare for upcoming opportunities or just general actions. Partially, it's obviously just like a design choice by the developers to make it more difficult to perfect. You can't just sit and watch a timer. You'll need to get into a rhythm, feeling out how long your recasts are without staring at the menus all the time, because then you're stuck in the menu. And of course, some of this stuff is just partially a result of the times, with quality of life improvements that we've become used to. They just didn't exist yet. They weren't a thing in games of this era. It's just an old game. I mean, a lot of this stuff was designed to fit old TVs and their tiny resolutions, and you just had to kind of be like, there's no space for a big health bar. We've got this much space on the screen. It's a PS2 game. But where it gets interesting is that the game either was designed around it or the UI reflected the design choices of the game because it all worked together. Final Fantasy XI was constantly providing visual and audio cues, and of course chat messages, to be aware of what's going on around them. If you got aggro, an enemy would first quickly like turn to look your way with some sort of awkward Pokemon grunt. It was always just kind of like before they would actually move towards you. Hell, if I had 3 hours, I'd go into how much I think this particular detail was crucial to 11, and maybe I'll make that video someday. I don't know why other games have never really adopted the way that Final Fantasy XI handled enemy aggro and movement. I love that they had to build up acceleration, like as they'd start running after you, they kind of was like it wasn't just immediately at full speed, it was important, and then they would slow down as they got closer, because they would get close and they'd be in range like. But that initial turn and look before anything had happened, in that moment of dread and choice, where you had to make that split-second decision before anybody had really done anything about whether you were gonna run or fight. I don't know, most games, enemies just seem to immediately notice you and then they're already sprinting your way. Like as soon as the action has happened, there's no like, what's that? And then they come at you. It's just like, I don't know, 11 just felt more natural. But those growls, those weird noises that they made became ingrained in our minds. And we'd hear them and know exactly what was happening, what type of enemy was probably engaged. It was kind of weird. I guarantee you, if you blindfold yourself right now and a goblin aggroes you, you'll know it's a goblin. Then you got visual stuff like the little red lines to indicate that a weapon skill or special action was about to happen from an enemy. Spellcasting noises that were totally different by spell school. Like you can recognize a summoning spell versus like black magic. It all just adds up to this constant input of information that isn't a line of text or an icon. It's the same way we process information from the real world. You'll hear a car horn or a phone ring, and you know exactly what that is without looking. You're like, ah yes, that's a car, pissed off at somebody else around them. By taking some of these indicators away from on-screen elements, they put the focus where it should be, back on the game itself, the world, the enemies, your fellow players. I mean, hell, I would love to play some weapon skill noises someday and see if you can just tell what they are, like without showing the animation. Like, could we know what weapon skill is firing off? Some of them you could. I could tell you Dancing Edge in a second. You react to the animations of some players to time abilities of your own. You see the enemy doing that little casting stance. You don't even know what they're casting. You stun the crap out of them because you're like, I don't know what they're doing, but I don't want them to do it. And look, 11 was not the only game ever to do this, but because it offered so few alternatives in the form of UI elements to make this information more accessible, it forced you to experience 11 more as a world than as a game. And that's really where I'm driving with all of this, the why of it, the why of the UI of Final Fantasy XI. The impact it had on the experience was so fundamentally important. Final Fantasy XI became an experience, a world that you lived in versus a game that you played because you saw it through a lens that reflected that. If you see a bunch of game elements on screen all the time and that's all you ever focus on, that's what you'll see and that's what you'll experience. 11 tried to keep that all away and just focus you looking out at the rain and the hills and the enemies and the cool lore monsters. What the hell is a lore monster? You know what I'm saying though, you'd see an NPC fly off the screen that you didn't even know what they were doing in that zone. You're like, what the hell is that? But you might have missed it if you were focused on, I don't know, hotbar. Look, all sorts of little pieces that went into Final Fantasy XI's design reinforce this and come together to make Final Fantasy XI what it is. But the UI, in my mind, is really where it starts, with that fundamental design choice that says, we don't want to let you know the MP cost is spell cost unless you dig down into a menu each time you use it, which you probably don't. We don't want to show you when it's ready to cast. We don't want to show you when you can use Berserk again. It's accessible. You can get to that information if you have to. But we want you to start figuring it out for yourself. Don't worry about all those little details. Over time, you'll get a feel for how often you can cast or when you can use weapon skills or when abilities are ready. Just focus on the enemies, the animations, and the environments. I feel like this is one reason that I felt so much more connected to Chiruroi as a character than some of the other characters I've played in other games. You had to get a feel for everything so intently over so much repetition and just like doing things over and over and over again that you just got so used to it. It was like the back of my hand how well I knew all the things that Chiruroi as a character could do. When I play other games, sometimes I feel like I'm almost driving like a character mech where I have abilities and levers that I can pull to like get them to do stuff, and it's a ton of fun. I'm not saying that other games aren't fun, often more fun than Final Fantasy XI in some ways. That's not what I'm saying. But I never feel like attached to those characters in the same way, if that makes sense. And look, that's not to say that those other experiences are necessarily a bad experience. A great UI and showing off important elements can make games a lot of fun to play, and they're very fun games. But the way 11 did it was more like, here's a window into a world. You may wish you had some more information every once in a while, but it's gonna look awesome. That development style is just a choice, but the level of immersion that 11 offered in a game type that thrives off of immersion. MMOs love immersion. It just blew me away. Now, having thrown out these positives, I know there has certainly been some frustration over the years about how difficult it was to mod 11 even in the slightest way, and it was never officially supported. And people really wanted to mod 11 because there were certain things that are really annoying. I mean, who remembers counting Usazemi shadows because there was nothing to actually indicate how many of those shadows you had left? Cool design choice? Yeah, but it's kind of annoying. With Final Fantasy XI being so difficult at times, I mean, how many random deaths could have been avoided if a little timer had showed me that Protect was wearing off in 30 seconds and I should probably avoid starting that fight? You know, they finally did add that. But when? When did they add that? But guys, what was your experience? Did you enjoy 11's minimalistic approach, or did you crave more details in your day-to-day play? Question of the week, what was the one thing you always wished the UI had shown you? Or conversely, what do you wish modern games or other games would take out of their UI, stop showing the player, that kind of matches 11's style? Keep on the lookout for more videos like this every week, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in more videos like this, think about subscribing. And if you already have, don't forget to click that little bell next to the sub button to get notified when new videos go live. Hit me up in the comments with your thoughts on this video, or come hang out and chat with me on Twitch every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And definitely look me up on Twitter or Instagram and Hunt for Games to keep up with what else I've got going on.
See ya.